Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. I am Father George Ehusani, and I have with me once again in the studio Professor Andrew Zamani. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Professor Zamani is a clinical psychologist, is a professor of psychology, and he is the director of the Institute for Governance and Development Studies at Nasarawa State University. Professor has been with us several times. He's actually a lead faculty member at Luke's Terra Leadership Foundation in all the trainings we have tried to do in the area of psychology and trauma and so on and so forth. Today, however, Prof, I brought you for us to discuss this embarrassing phenomenon of rape that is increasing in our society. The increasing anomaly of rape in our society. What is going on? All of a sudden, we are hearing this 50-year-old person raped this 10-year-old person, this 30-year-old person violated this 13-year-old, all kinds of abominable things that, the kind of thing that in the traditional African society, people will be banished from the village. People will be sent away to the evil bush for doing. Nobody will ever marry from that society because this person did this abominable deed. Now, what's going on? Why is it, first of all, is there a real major increase in this phenomenon, or are we just hearing more of it now than we used to hear? Maybe is it social media that is making us hear more of it? Or perhaps if there is a real increase in numbers of this terrible crime of rape, what's going on? What's the psychology? Are people all of a sudden have people become sick and don't know how to handle themselves? What could be going on?
Well, thank you, Father. It's really, again, a very difficult question to ask, to answer, mainly because, again, we do not have data. And so it's very difficult to say whether rape is on the increase or, it's something that we have just suddenly become more aware of and are beginning to talk about.
More openly than before.
More openly than before. But, from anecdotal evidences, it is safer to imagine that rape is really on the increase. Again, this is a subject that the intellectuals in the ivory tower need to investigate. Yeah. We need to interrogate this.
So we use facts and figures.
Yeah, we have to use it. Unfortunately, we have gender-based gender institutes in many universities that are reeling out no information about social pathologies that are related to sex crimes and gender-based violence. Now, let me approach your question from these perspectives. One, to say that there has been an underlying psychopathology which hitherto was like a keg of
something kept
gunpowder.
Something kept covered,
waiting to explode. And we have now reached a point where the explosion has taken place, and it is taking us unawares.
There is a psychopathology in our society that we have actually been holding down.
We have had over a very long period of time, a group of, I want to start with, because you gave an example of a 50-year-old sexually assaulting a child.
Yes.
A child. We have had a very large number of unassessed pedophiles in our society.
Pedophiles are people who have a mental
sexual
attraction to
children.
Minors.
Yes. We've had them over time. And the fun is that this kind of attraction can be to a family member, a child who is a family member, blood.
The records in other countries show that the majority of violation of children happens within the family.
Within the family. And it can happen, between an adult in one family setting with a child in another family setting. Now, these are obsessions that are really very, very strong. The intensity with which this recurrent desire to have sexual, to derive sexual gratification with children is so intense.
So you
that
call it
pushes.
You say intense obsession, but for the layman's language, you say the person is sick. The person know well, right?
Well, we'll get to the person is obviously sick. It's a mental disorder for which such people need treatment.
Need help.
They need treatment. But these things are not confessed. Even people who have them just feel that they are normal sexual desires, and because the target is within reach, I'll just go.
So discussions like this are useful for people to know that if you are a 50, a 30, a 40-year-old and you are attracted sexually to a 12-year-old, that there is something wrong with you.
It's mental illness.
It's mental illness.
It's mental illness.
That needs to be, we need to bring that over and over for people to recognize that.
So in our campaigns, yes, rape is not,
it's horrible.
It's horrible. Rape is not an activity to condone. Rape is even a crime.
Yes.
All right. But we should also be conscious of the underlying
factors that disease factors that predispose somebody to commit rape.
Thank you. So this is one perspective, and so you have pedophilia producing many rapists.
Pedophilia produces many rapists.
Yes. The second perspective to the issue is the fact that, over the course of time, men are beginning to lose confidence in their ability to relate with women who are now more assertive, courtesy of the women's lib movements.
Mm-hmm.
Women are more assertive, women are more intellectual, women are more economically empowered.
Self-confident.
So, yes. And the opportunities for women to grow
are more now.
Is now much more abundant.
Yes.
Than used to be. And unfortunately, the men are getting more reduced in the workforce. The men are getting less and less opportunities. The men are losing the capacity to constructively engage women, both within the family.
They cannot continue to be boss as they used to be boss. It used to be taken for granted that.
So they use physical power.
Oh.
All right.
So as they are losing out in the age-old patriarchy and bossing of women all over the place, as they are losing that, they are resorting to physical power.
Yes, to physical power. And that's why a driver would rape a managing director who is his boss, and then kill her thereafter.
Because cannot engage her intellectually.
It doesn't even arise. But the bossiness of this woman over a period of time is such that gets to the point that this guy feels, look, let me end it. All right? Let me show her the male ego, father. The male ego. Let me show her that I'm a man. And what do? You use physical power. You put her down. You use her. It's done. She now knows you're a man. You could actually physically take her and do whatever you want to do with her. But because this is not supposed to be for pleasure, but to prove a point, he kills her, and then he walks away.
So some of the rape may not be for pleasure, but to prove
for power relations.
For power relations.
For power
to
relations.
prove that you are more powerful.
Yes.
So it's an abuse of power.
Thank you. Now, the other issue is that, rape most of the time is premeditated, but done under the influence of drugs. Because the drug, drug abuse, the reason is that the perpetrator feels that he can claim innocence based on being under the influence of substances.
So the guy goes to take tramadol or wee or whatever
it is,
and goes after a woman.
He goes towards his target. I have said that it's usually premeditated. It's usually premeditated, but there are circumstances in which the idea is to make rape part of a big criminal activity like armed robbery, the banditry, the terrorism that we see.
Under the circumstance,
in the Northeast.
Under the circumstance of armed robbery,
yes.
For example, I'm just imagining the circumstance of armed robbery.
Yes.
Will people be in the state of mind to have sexual fulfillment? So for a gang to go for armed robbery and be able to rape people, what's going on? What's going on? Because will the circumstance enable them to even have anything called sexual fulfillment? So,
Father,
it may not just
context,
be the same thing about power to show that we can do this.
Yes, but we also have to understand that sex in this context is a hedonistic factor, a pleasurable factor as the drug that the person takes himself. So you don't evaluate the sexual pleasure in isolation. You evaluate it in the context of the loot, the drug influence, and then, of course, the additional sexual assault that takes place in that context. There are times that the initial intention is not to commit rape, but because there has been resistance on the part of the husband, or there has been resistance on the part of the woman herself.
So it's punishment.
Yes, let's punish you. And you notice that, from the stories that we get, these people take turns. I mean, it's usually abnormal. People would think that that there are, in a typical Nigerian cultural context, that this thing is diabolical.
No, of course it's diabolical.
It's diabolical. It's well, of course, there is a sense in which some form of cultism requires that rape should be committed.
That's another dimension. What you have just mentioned now is another dimension.
Yeah,
I have painfully reflected on what is going on, especially the whole issue of some 50-year-old person going to lie down violate a 5-year-old. And I am almost 100% convinced that this is not about sensuality, that there must be something going on here that I don't understand. And some people have mentioned occultism. Some people have mentioned that there is some occultic practice requiring rape, requiring, all those kind of sexual violation.
And I agree with that. To the extent that we have also heard that many people in the pursuit of power
and
or
money,
wealth, yes, have been asked to rape vagrant psychotic women on the streets.
Yes.
And they do so, and they bear children for them, And you get the point. And you know, in very odd hours of the night, you see a Porsche car
on the road,
parking on the road towards a vagrant psychotic woman who is the mother of the child of whoever owns that car. She recognizes him and she accepts him, and he involves her in sexual activities perpetually, probably to maintain his empire of power. Or that's different. That's different.
So even when Nigerians go around calling themselves Muslims and Christians, that these things are still going on, where these things which are works of darkness are still going on.
They are going on. And that's a challenge for our spiritual fathers. But it's also a challenge for behavioral scientists and mental health practitioners like psychologists and psychiatrists.
Because such people they're not well.
They need to be evaluated.
Yes.
And that's the point, Father, that I'm about to make. I do not want us to go the simplistic way to say, everybody, is diabolical and so on and so forth. Whether it is diabolical or not, they should be evaluated.
They are not well.
The psychiatrists should evaluate them. The psychologists should assess them. Let us generate data. Let us have a profile of these people who do rapes, who conduct rape activities, so that we can inform policy. We can inform legislation. Our laws are there.
Yes.
All right. But they have not been respected. They've not been implemented.
What we are
the judiciary is more or less sidelined in the process of managing and responding to rape issues.
It is not even. We don't need new legislations. We have legislations about this. What you are saying is that when somebody is caught who has violated a child,
yes.
When somebody is caught who has violated a vagrant,
yes.
a destitute woman,
yes.
or a sick, mentally deranged person,
yes.
who is destitute,
yes.
If somebody is so caught, it is not just a criminal offense. It is a case for study as to what could be the mental mindset of this person.
Yeah.
So psychologists should be interested.
Yes.
Psychiatrists should be interested. Pastors and imams should be interested. That we should all be part of the evaluation. What's going on here?
Exactly.
How can somebody who went to church on a Sunday be seen on Tuesday night with his car parked somewhere in an awkward place, looking to sleep with a vagrant?
Yes.
So something is wrong.
Yes.
And it should be, like you're saying, it should be a study, a subject of research, so as to know how to approach this in a holistic way. Because
Absolutely.
simply arresting the person and putting in jail, I mean, we can see that the U.S. that has constantly thrown a lot of people in jail, we can see the consequence. It's not helping.
Mm-mm.
So simply arresting the person, putting in jail without studying the circumstance and how do we check this thing in a comprehensive manner. It's a very important point you have made. I still remember how 20 years ago or less, the government in Lagos decided to arrest everybody that was driving one way, driving against the traffic.
Yeah.
And they sent them to the Yaba Psychiatric Hospital, and we were told that 60% of the arrested people were supposed to be in an asylum. We are supposed to be detained in an asylum, meaning that a lot of people walking about our streets, including those who are riding jeeps and, VIPs, are not well.
They need help.
Yeah. Aha. Yeah. So, and then before we conclude this one, we still have a problem. The Child Rights Act in Nigeria has not been domesticated by every state.
Yeah. And the question is why?
And then it turns out that some of those states are states where people are allowed to marry children. People are allowed to marry minors.
Yeah.
13, 14, 15-year-olds, they're allowed to marry. Yeah. So I have a problem understanding how in our circumstance, therefore, you can distinguish between pedophilia as a crime, in the practice of, violating a minor, and then people legally marrying people under 18 in the same country.
Yeah, unfortunately, everything is circumscribed around the law. If in a particular cultural context or national context, there is the law permits that minors can be married by adults, then we forfeit the rights as mental health practitioners to diagnose pedophilia in that context.
Yeah.
We forfeit the right. All right.
Because you can't even be talking of pedophilia in that sense.
Exactly. What I think we need in Nigeria now is a very strong movement of women.
Because women themselves.
Women, of all faiths have to sit down and look at their peculiar circumstance and situation. Because I understand in some of these states, the commissioners for women affairs and social development are women.
Yes.
And yet,
what are they doing?
And yet they are doing nothing.
And some of these people know. We have gone to school. We all know what is called VVF.
Exactly.
And how the younger the girl is, the more liable to VVF. And you destroy the person for life.
Yeah.
So how can we till today still allow some of those things which were carried out at a time when there was ignorance? And we can say, okay, it was a time of ignorance.
Yeah.
But now we are aware of the terrible negative health consequences of this, and we still have states in Nigeria that do not, domesticate some of these things, these policies. I think we really need the Psychological Association. You said something just now that is puzzling for me. That in those states where people are allowed to marry minors, psychologists cannot diagnose pedophilia.
How can you? Because they are protected by law. And so whatever you do will tantamount to labeling. It would tantamount to stereotyping.
So what is a crime in the rest of the world and in the rest of the country, in these places, it's not seen as a crime.
Yeah. So we need a very strong feminine movement in Nigeria that will defy, the social and political barriers. Let's agree what is the marriageable age for women, so that anything that is below that,
we consider it a violation.
We can now begin to consider mental health diagnosis, with respect to protecting people in that age bracket from violation.
Yeah.
Further, what is even most alarming is the fact that we are beginning to have situations whereby this rape is no longer a gender issue.
It's no longer just male against female.
No longer against male against female, but male against male.
It's happening.
Yes. We have people who keep children in asylums
and rape them
and organize them for rich men to perpetually rape them.
That's horrible.
We have high rates of prison-related rape
in this country.
Not just in this country, all over the world. All right, and our country is not not.
And you are talking of homosexual rape.
Homosexual rape. That's what I'm talking about.
Wow.
But we also have a situation where you are having, adult females raping small boys. In the pedophilic context, a school teacher just finds a female teacher, 30, 40, 50-year-old, raping a 10-year-old boy.
So what it means,
a 12-year-old boy.
What it means is the strengthening of our laws.
Absolutely.
The education of people about the negative consequences, psychological, emotional, spiritual, medical, of victims of these crimes, that the rest of society should know.
Yeah. the advocacy has to be strong. It has to be strong. And then the mental health professions would have to mobilize. They have to work together as a team, to ensure that they drive the advocacy that would enforce the awareness that such a behavior is not only a crime, but a mental health problem. And you know what happens? People fear mental health diagnosis more than they fear imprisonment.
Is that so?
Oh, yes.
Because
once you are pronounced as mad, I mean, who else will respect you for life? And so if people know that when they commit rape, one likely
consequence is that they will be referred to psychiatrists.
Yes, they will have to see the mental health practitioner. They are likely to have a second thought.
On that note, we will be bringing this segment to an end. I have been speaking to Professor Andrew Zamani, Director of the Institute for Governance and Development Studies, Nasarawa State University, former President of the Nigerian Psychological Association, and lead faculty of Luke's Terra Leadership Foundation. We've been speaking about this worrying, embarrassing, troubling phenomenon of rape that appears to be increasing in our society. And all of us need to be involved. Parents and teachers and pastors and imams, all adults need to be involved in the advocacy you're talking about to say, enough of this. Let there be no one more child that is raped in this society.
Yeah.
And we all need to be on the lookout.
Absolutely.
And perhaps in future, we may need to come and discuss what are the signs and signals of a child that perhaps has just been recently violated.
Yeah, it's important.
It's important. So that the rest of society can be on the lookout, and we can call the child in private and say, did anything happen to you? So that more will be reported, and such people can be fished out in society and sent to where they belong, asylum, as it were. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.